How's it going, everybody? It's Catfish on Ice with Chad Minton and Max Greenberg, presented by Game Time and DraftKings with our promo codes THPN. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button, join the show, throw some comments, say hi. Let's talk some hockey tonight. It's episode 260 of Catfish on Ice, and a lot to get into this evening, this late evening. I'm going to tell you what we're about to get into. Of course, the Preds winning streak came to an end. If they're going to replicate that 18-game point streak, well, I think it ended already.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
16-0-2. Yeah.
I don't
Everyone's
think
thinking
so.
about it.
I don't think so.
But yeah, so let's see if the Preds can flip the script and get back on the winning ways. Got the Canucks up next. But
January going through some turmoil right now.
But this just goes to show you can't just look at your next opponent and think. But the Ducks have been they're kind of like a young up and coming team.
Right.
It was a late night game. It was a weird game. Juuse Saros though, is showing once again how streaky he is. He is on the wrong end of a streak. The Preds just had a positive winning streak ended, but Juuse Saros, he's on the other end of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
He is on the bad end of a streak right now. And, that 8-year contract kicks in next year. And even though I still believe that is going to be a bargain contract down the road, I guarantee you there's already people starting to have buyer's remorse. So we got to get into that a little bit. We're going to have some fun tonight. First of all, we do have to talk about the Mikko Rantanen mega trade is what I keep calling. I mean, can you really think of a crazier trade where I know he was going to be a free agent and all that stuff. And it was a unique situation, a conundrum, if you will, that the Avalanche found themselves in. But a three-way trade that involved Taylor Hall, some other great players, Chicago Blackhawks retaining salary in it, and you got draft picks being swapped. You got Mikko Rantanen coming out saying, I wanted to stay with the Avs. I was willing to take less money. It's just a lot of drama. But he joins the Hurricanes, though, who suddenly look like – I mean, they already were a legit Stanley Cup contender. He's already scored a goal for them. Taylor Hall and Rantanen are already get proven to have positive dividends for the Hurricanes already in the games we're watching tonight. But wow, we got to break down that trade a little bit more, look into it. I mean, just nuts, bonkers.
I can't believe it.
We are going to have some fun and rank our top 5 NHL goal songs, and we're going to take our bias out of it. We're not including the Preds in this one because it's just impossible. Or did you include the Preds, Max? Did you miss that memo? If so, it's okay. I did not.
I'll kind of say that I tried to be as objective as I could with it, but here's the thing. When I was going through the list, I'm kind of spoiling a little early, there were a lot of goal songs. Like, there's a lot of really good goal songs in the league. You can make a case for any one of them. And I'll say at some point, because of that, I allowed myself to be a little bit biased, and I put the Preds in at some point. But we'll get into it.
We'll find out. I left the Preds out not because I think they have a bad goal song, but when it comes to music, even if you're trying to not be biased, it's impossible. Plus the Black Keys, Gold on the Ceiling. I mean, it's a banger. So how do you leave that out? Plus,
it's not the Preds, though. I have some other ones in the pipeline.
I mean, Tim McGraw, I like it. I love it. I mean, that's just always going to be a classic.
Chance, I mean, it gets the whole crowd going.
So I had to I'll break down my personal criteria on how I ranked mine, and Max can give his criteria on how he did his. We'll save that. We'll save you the suspense. We'll tell you a little bit later, but that'll be a lot of fun. We haven't done a fun list like that in a while on this show, and so I'm looking forward to that. We got to update our trade board for the Preds, our top trade candidates for the Preds right now. And, the Preds, they're in a weird position because they don't have a lot of free agents to get off the books. They're not one of those teams where they're scrambling around like, oh, this guy's about to be a unrestricted free agent, so we have to just unload him. They only got one guy. So they're in a weird position where Trotz has to figure out who he wants to trade, who he doesn't want to trade, it's kind of a weird situation. So we'll update that. Plus, Trotz gave a little, I wouldn't call it revealing or candid, really. I thought he gave the politically correct responses that a general manager is going to give at this point, this far ahead of the trade deadline. But he did go on to 102.5 The Game in Nashville and talk to Jared Stillman. And he gave the very cookie cutter response of, oh yeah, if we're close to a playoff spot, I'm gonna buy again, like I did last year. But he also went on both sides of the fence and said, but if we're way too far out, I'll look to selling as well. So not a lot of groundbreaking news there.
Right.
But we are going to break those comments down, and we're going to preview the Four Nations face-off, which is coming up. We're going to look at the Preds representatives in there, look at each roster. Who do we got? Who's looking good? And a new segment, You're Doing Too Much, is what we're going to call this segment. Whenever someone comes up to you and they say, hey, you're doing too much, you just need to calm down and chill out. You might make a statement. You might make a proclamation of sorts, and someone might say, hey, you're doing too much. Just calm down. So I got 4 statements here that I'm going to make about the Preds. And Max can say either you're doing too much or, you know what? That's fair. That's a fair statement. We'll round out episode 260 with that. So a full slate of topics to talk about. Jump in on the comments. We got to say hi to some people. Mike is in here. Mike Twitter, formerly known as, been on the show for a long time, joined the show. Good to see you, Mike. He says, finally figured out how to set the alerts on YouTube to get notified for an episode.
Yeah.
Well, have you? Shashka Tooth Tiger jumps in and says hello. And Mike Twitter also says, Rantanen said he didn't know there was such a rush to get a deal done.
Yeah.
Drama. We like drama. Drama's fun for what we do for the show.
When it's not involving your team.
Hey, I'm sorry, but the Preds are going to give us plenty of drama.
No, they will. They will.
You don't have to worry about that. Trotz is just foaming at the mouth right now to give us all the drama. I know he is, and he's going to do it, I'm sure. So let's talk about how the Preds winning streak does end. They lose to the Ducks. Like the Juuse Saros is what we have to talk about here. It's kind of the topic of conversation. He's rating among I saw a list. It was around like 50 goalies they were ranking, and he's back down around 47 or 48, give or take a couple spots among all goalies in terms of just goalie efficiency, expected goals against, all that stuff. Like, he is really tracking among some of the worst goalies in the league right now in recent times. And we've always known he's streaky, but normally he gets hotter and hotter and better as the season goes along. That's not happening right now, Max. And is it really a cause for concern, or is it just the same old Saros? Because the dude's about to get a new contract of 8 years. It kicks in next year. So, Max, what do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think with just about with anything, and I think this is a situation like that, I think the truth's somewhere in the middle of it all. Number one, looking at the way the Preds have played lately, they've been really bad defensively. Even in the 2 games against San Jose, when Juuse Saros played a good bit of it, in San Jose, he gave up 5 goals, and I wouldn't say a lot of those goals are his fault. But at the same time, you can't just blame the defense for being bad. Like, I'm not, again, and from what I could tell, it was, I didn't watch the Anaheim game, and from what I could tell, the defense in front of Saros was really bad in that game as well. But, at the same time, you pay a guy like Saros to elevate your team. He's not doing that right now. You still, while you want more from your defense, and while, defense can leave your goaltender out to dry, you still want to see more from Saros to, elevate the team. And, I think, you make a good point. He is a streaky goaltender, although normally he starts off poorly and then rebounds. That's not happening this time around. But, it's one of those things where, at least until I'm not going to fully give up on Saros yet. And when you look back at, how Saros has performed, he's still a bona fide talent in the league. He's been a top 5 Vezina goalie for the past 3 years. He was number 6 the year before in 2020, 2021. Some thought he should have been way higher than that anyway. But, all to say, I think until Saros truly shows that, he's really not that good. I think you have to trust that he's going to bounce back at some point. And even last year, he went through some streaks. He started off poorly, then kind of got it back together, then went through another rough patch, and then got it back together again. And he still finished top 5 in Vezina voting. And the point is, you can still be a really good goaltender and go through bad points throughout the year. And I think, they're just 2 examples, but when you look at a goaltender like Connor Hellebuyck, he was really bad in the playoffs last year. And there's a few games in the finals last year. Sergei Bobrovsky started off the finals incredibly, and then several games that he started leaking. And goaltenders, like any player, but even more so than a lot of players, are going to go through cold streaks, and Saros certainly is no exception. So again,
to your point, very valid point.
Yeah, it's not nothing, but I'm certainly not at the panic point with Saros yet.
Very valid point there. When you bring up goalies who, and I've also brought this up. I've been a major defender of Saros whenever the pitchforks come after him. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to be just like rose-colored glasses and not call it for what I see it when he is struggling. And I do think that he's in one of those struggle moments at a really bad time of the year right now to be in one of those struggle moments. But you just hit the nail on the head there, Max. Let's look at Connor Hellebuyck and what happened to him in the playoffs and how he is, he is indisputably the best goalie in the league right now.
Yes.
I mean, you can't even really make an argument for number 2, a valid one, unless you're just, cheerleading for your favorite team's goalie, maybe. There's a big argument for who's number 2 and who's number 3, but as of how they're playing right now and who is dominant right now, it is Connor Hellebuyck and everyone else. When it comes to goalies, again, as you say, Max, they're all streaky. They're all streaky. Some are more streaky than others. Some go through longer struggle moments than others, and that's why they're not as good as the top echelon. But again, here's why I'm not panicking about Saros. The Preds' problems and why they can't get to the next level and why they can't actually be a Stanley Cup contender is what's plagued them for years. It's not their goalies. It wasn't. Pekka Rinne was streaky. Pekka Rinne had some really bad moments, not only in the regular season, but also in the playoffs. And he's still recognized as the GOAT of this franchise, and rightfully so. And Saros' numbers are very equal to Pekka Rinne's numbers with where he's at in his career right now. And if he plays out his 8-year contract, he'll probably pass Pekka Rinne. If he plays out his 8 years with Nashville and stays the number 1 goalie in Nashville, he will pass Pekka Rinne in every category. I mean, I've tracked it. If he keeps up his averages, he doesn't just completely fall off a cliff, he'll pass Pekka Rinne. So it's really the Preds. They have to solve the center position and finding dynamic playmakers more than just 1 or 2. We know Philip Forsberg is a dynamic playmaker. We know Roman Yossi's a dynamic playmaker. But other than that, they've got a lot of guys who are decent, who are good, but they're past their primes. They're aging. They're not going to be the long-term fix, most likely. And that's why a lot of fans are upset with where we're at this season, is because they see a Steven Stamkos, they see Ryan O'Reilly. They like the guys. They're good, but they're not in their primes. They're still good, but they're not in their primes. They're not as good as they were at their peaks. So where does that leave the Predators? That leaves Juuse Saros having to just play Superman every game, and that's just not going to get it done. Most NHL franchises, most of them, the elite bona fide contenders, they can overcome bad goalie play because they've got so many elite playmakers who can put up 4 or 5 goals in a game easily. I think about the Colorado Avalanche as a very clear example. When the Tampa Bay Lightning were going through their dynasty run, Vasilevsky was one of the best goalies in the league, but they could overcome a bad night for Vasilevsky too. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and honestly, to kind of commenting on your point about the no playmakers on offense. I mean, obviously there's some, but like it's this team. Recently has done a better job of putting pucks in the net. At least it seems. But then they've forgotten how to play defense. And a lot of these goals by Saros, and I'm not going to sit here and say that the goals not being your fault means you're playing well. But I'm not. I don't think a lot of these goals. I don't think they're like crazy. Like Saros absolutely should stop. Like no, like these are prime chances the Preds are giving up. Like,
and look, the Preds have a makeshift defensive corpse right now. As much as we like Nick Blankenberg's play, and we do, me and Max in particular. I mean, we've just been beating the drum about how much we like this guy. But this is a rag and tag, mix and match defense right now.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just throwing things together. It hasn't gone necessarily according to plan when it comes to this, and they play very hard. I mean, they block shots, they get in the lanes, but it's not this team's strong suit. It really isn't. They give up a lot of odd man rushes. They'll play really, really good. They'll play 2 periods of good hockey defensively, and then they just completely break down. And when the Preds defense really gets exposed is when they have to play a really fast team.
Yeah.
And they just get exposed. And when they have to get in these track meet games where it's end-to-end action, I just take a deep breath. And I'm like, how are the Preds going to keep up in this game? And I'm not saying they can't win some of those games. They have come out ahead, especially when they play the less talented teams. Like when they played San Jose. That game scared me because San Jose's got some speed, but they're also very young and inexperienced, and the Preds veteran experience kind of overcame the Sharks. They had to make that comeback. Our last live watch along, we watched that one. But even the rematch, Sharks were trying to expose them with speed, and luckily the Sharks just aren't quite there yet. But if you play a truly elite team who has got a lot of speed, I don't give the Preds much of a chance in a 7-game series against any of these teams. Maybe they might pull out 1 win. They might lose in 5. That's literally how I feel about the Preds going up against a true elite fast team in the playoffs. And so whether Saros is playing great or not, they got to get offense. They got to get faster. That's going to take time to build. That's not going to happen this season. I hate to break it to everybody, but it's not.
No. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I'm worried about Saros a little bit, I will admit. I think he's Juuse Saros, and I said it, Max, in the last episode.
Yeah, you were right. You were right.
I mean, I'm not saying I was right. That's just how I felt. It's not a knock.
You were right about him starting the San Jose game, and I was like, he probably won't, but yeah, he did.
But it's not a knock on Saros, but it's more and more commonplace that teams are going with 1A and 1B goalies. I mean, you're way more in the minority when you're a team that rides your goalie for 60 plus starts every year. The Jets do it with Connor Hellebuck, and they should because he's such a great goalie. But it's becoming less and less commonplace that teams do this. And I think the Preds have to start adopting that, even with Saros being signed for 8 years. That shouldn't dictate your thinking here. And I don't look at Saros as being a dramatic guy who's going to get his ego bruised at all. He's a team guy. So start playing Juuse Saros more. And I don't know why the team seems to play always better in front of Rantanen, but it seems to always happen. But I'm not saying that's why you should play Rantanen more, but I'm just saying, like, give the guy a chance more. Give him some. I'm not saying 50-50, but I'm definitely saying maybe 60-40.
65-35 maybe?
I mean, if we want to get technical, but I'm not saying a 50-50 split, but Juuse Saros is making a case for himself that he should be playing a lot more than just a standard backup goalie, is my point.
He should be playing, like I think you said it last episode, he shouldn't be a goaltender that just plays on the back end of a back-to-back.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see what happens. You got Vancouver up next, who's in a mess of their own. And we're really going to get into it a little bit more. In fact, we can do it right now, Max. Let's jump right to the next topic here. Let's jump into our trade list, actually.
Yeah.
Our trade board. And Max, how about you fire it away first and you give us your top trade list right now for the Predators? as we sit a little less than a month away from the trade deadline, give
Yeah,
or take around 5 weeks.
We're literally almost 5.5 weeks at this point.
Yeah, somewhere around there. So a lot of games left. A lot of games left between now and then. Preds sit 12 points back, I believe. Last time I looked at the standings. A lot of ground to make up. If they get around 5 or 6 points when that deadline comes up, I think that's kind of the sweet spot where Barry Trotz could be really enticed to buy instead of sell. But with that said, let's look at your trade list.
Yeah.
First, Max, and then I'll critique it.
Yeah. Number one on my list. And I'll just say I tried to take everything into account here. There was no like one criteria I had definitely above the other. I tried, based on several things such as, likelihood they're going to get traded, whether they should be, all these things here. But anyway, kind of go number one, the only UFA this year, Gus Nyquist. And at this point, I've been saying so long, trade Nyquist. It seems like I'm a Nyquist hater. I promise I like the guy just fine. But, given where the team is at, again, he's going to be a pending UFA. There's a lot of teams out there who would use him, only making $3 million. It's especially for teams that are going to be pressed up against the cap, which a lot of teams are at this time of the year. Gus Nyquist, and just not against the guy himself, but just from a team, from a Pred standpoint, business standpoint, Gus Nyquist should not be on this team past trade deadline, assuming all holds up with the Preds right now. No. All
right, so let me give you my thoughts on that one real quick, and also share what I just put on the screen here for our YouTube viewers and Facebook viewers. And that's the article that came out by Alex Daugherty of the Tennessean, and that is breaking down the comments that Trotz shared on 102.5 The Game with Jared Stillman. And, again, kind of giving the politically correct response. He's not going to show his hand. He's not going to tell every freaking GM in the league, hey, this is what I'm going to do in 4 weeks or 5 weeks.
Right.
But at the same time, I did find it very interesting.
Yeah.
And that he is basically, so I want to read the quote that I got on the screen here for the people who are listening and not watching live. But this is, again, from Alex Daugherty of the Tennessean and also what Trotz shared on 102.5 The Game. And it says, quote, if we can crawl ourselves into it within striking distance, I will do what I did last year, Trotz said, alluding to 2 trades he made at the deadline last year. And so, first of all, I look at 2 words in that quote, striking distance. What does that mean? That is a very vague term.
Right.
Does that mean you're within 2 points, 6 points, 8 points? They're 12 points right now, which I don't think anybody in their wildest dreams would consider 12 points striking distance.
No, not at
all.
all.
Would you consider 4? What would you consider striking distance, Max? 4 points? 6 points?
I mean, that's a complicated thing for me because striking distance, I would say it's probably within 4 points. That being said, I don't want to see Trotz buying unless this team is like in a playoff spot and we kind of like last year at the deadline, this team was well in the midst of a streak. And at that point, we kind of knew like, okay, this team is playoff bound where they're going. And I don't see it. The Preds are going to get themselves in that situation this year. So like, yeah, I would really hope that like, even if you're 1 or 2 points, I mean, I guess if you get to the point of being 1 or 2 points out, you're on enough of a streak to where like that, I get you can't not reward that, I guess. But like, yeah, I would really hope that within striking distance would only mean literally within those 1 or 2 points, something like that, because like, but you get what I'm saying. Like, I don't want.
I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, it's hard for me to put into words, but I don't want this team buying unless like we really, really know, like, okay, they got something going.
I mean, this just doesn't surprise me, sadly enough. It really doesn't. Like, I mean, I figured this was going to happen, that we're going to be in this little fringe, not knowing which direction we want to go. We're not crappy enough to get a top 5 pick, but we're also not good enough to actually.
Right now they are. Right now they would be.
I know, but my point is, like, we all fear that they're gonna. We all fear that they're gonna do just enough to make us wonder and make us think, and really make Barry Trotz wonder and think. But even, to be fair, even in his comments, and it goes more into Alex Daugherty's article on the Tennessean, Trotz also said he is not going to just give away high-end draft picks.
Yeah.
And so that's what I put on. That's what I put on X later.
Yeah, I saw that.
I said, me seeing that Barry Trotz wants to be a buyer again this year. Which vet past their prime are we snagging Smashville? And I just said I knew it. I mean, I knew this was going to happen. A lot of people knew this was going to happen. I mean, but they're 12 points out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Trotz is really, really hanging on to that hope. He's not one of those GMs where he's just like, you know what, it's not happening for us. No, I mean, this guy refuses to just relinquish it. He's just like, no, I'm going to let this thing keep rolling and see where we're at in 2 or 3 weeks, 4 weeks maybe.
I do agree with what you said, though, about how, like, I think a lot of it is, not like refusing to give like total signals as far as like one direction or the other. I do think part of it's playing chess and like kind of, if nothing else, saying something, hey, like if you want a guy from us, like you're gonna have to pay up. Like we're not gonna, you know what I'm saying? Like not letting.
He also Trotz also said he's like, I'm open to being a seller as well. So he's really straddling the fence right now, which is kind of that's the answer he should give.
We're 5.5 weeks out. Like he shouldn't say
5.5 weeks out. Yeah. So there is a lot that can still change. He doesn't want to give up on this team yet. That would send a pretty bad message to the locker room if he just said, yeah, we're going to be sellers. So again, like I said, he gave the politically correct response.
Yeah.
No one should be mad about the response he gave. He's playing both sides of the coin right now because that's where we're at. But all right, so you say, sorry, I went on that rant. I went on that tangent. I'm sorry, Max. But you did. All right, Gus Nyquist, number 1 on the trade board. Yep. That should be on everyone's trade board. I mean, he's the only UFA that's coming up for the Preds, which again is really strange that you only have one. The way everything lines up. He's the only unrestricted free agent. He's on the back 9 of his NHL career. He's regressed this year. His production has gone down. Could he be an intriguing playoff rental for a team out there? Absolutely. He could give you some extra depth scoring if you're going to the playoffs and you just need another trustworthy veteran who can handle the pressure in the playoffs. Yeah, if you're in that position as a front office, Gus Nyquist should be an interesting pickup for you. Mm-hmm. What do you think the Preds could get realistically in a Gus Nyquist? 3rd round pick, maybe?
Something like 2nd or 3rd round or something like that, yeah.
I'd be happy with that.
Yeah.
I would be totally happy with that.
Yeah, I'd do that.
All right, so go with your next one.
Next one. I think this is going to throw you a bit for a loop. Number 2, I put Jeremy Lauzon. Yeah.
I didn't expect him to be that high on your list, and I didn't even necessarily prepare to hear that name. So, all right, Jeremy Lauzon.
Yeah,
all right.
No, I'll make a case. So, looking at and I wrote an article on this on Predlines. I probably talked about it on here a few times too. The Preds' defensive core is in a completely weird state right now. And there's a lot of guys there. I think when my article for Predlines, I think I mentioned like there are 9 players or whatever it is. There's a crazy number of players on this Preds team who have dressed in a game for the Preds on defense this year. And that doesn't even include Dante Fabro, who was waived. And my point is you have so many bodies on the blue line, a lot of them on the left side. And at some point you kind of got to free up some space for you because, of course, you've had guys like Adam Wilsby emerge, Nick Blankenburg, even Spencer Stastny, who's just back. He's just been sent back down to Milwaukee, which last year I would have said is crazy, but he kind of needs to play big minutes. And with Wilsby emerging, whatever. Point is, there still could be more work done on that blue line to, make some modifications and I guess focus more towards the future. Lauzon, he's in the 3rd of a 4-year contract. I believe even Michael Gallagher at some point mentioned that he'd heard Lauzon's name in trade circles, which doesn't surprise me. So, yeah, I mean, I could definitely see a guy like Lauzon being traded, and at that, and especially Lauzon's a player
on IR right now, though, so that would make him hard. That'd make him a little bit harder to be traded.
But I don't think
we don't really know the status of that.
I don't know quite either, but it doesn't seem to be season ending. Lauzon's also gotten better as his career's gone on. And with how physical he is, there's a ton of teams that would use a big physical guy like Lauzon in the playoffs.
Oh, when it comes to physicality, for sure, and the fact that you only have to take on one additional year,
right?
You could treat that as like a performance based. Okay, we'll see how you perform when we bring you on, and we might re-sign you if you really flourish here. But you're not investing a whole lot long term. It's $2 million per year, and you kind of know what you're getting out of Jeremy Lauzon.
Right.
At the bare minimum, you know you're going to get a guy who is going to step up to the physicality of the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I do agree that some teams would be interested in Jeremy Lauzon.
Yeah.
A Jeremy Lauzon trade return, though, I'm thinking like mid to late draft pick.
I think you can get a third or fourth for him.
I'd be very happy with that. Maybe even get a low end prospect. Who knows? Yeah. But I don't think you're definitely not getting more than. I don't think you're getting more than a fourth round. I think that's the top of the heap for me. I would be shocked if you got a third, just because he doesn't give you much more than that, and he is 27. It's not like we're talking about a young, rising, up and coming defenseman. You kind of get what you get with Jeremy Lauzon. Could he become a little bit better of an offensive defenseman if he's in the right situation? Maybe he does have.
I don't think his offense. I think defensively he's solid.
He's so hit or miss, and he comes with liabilities as well. I mean, he goes to the box a lot, and I know a lot of that has to do with him taking fighting majors. But I'm not even talking about fighting majors. He does take a lot of penalties. I think there's a lot of good and a lot of bad that you take with Jeremy Lauzon. So I think the team who would be interested in him, they're only going to be willing to take him if they don't have to give up that much, really.
I mean, I know it's not necessarily, it's kind of comparing apples to oranges, whatever, but if guys like Brennan Hagel and Tanner Jeannot can get major returns at the trade deadline, Jeremy Lauzon can get something.
Oh, yeah, he'll get something. I think a fourth round pick is doable. I just don't think it's much higher than that. All right, let's go to your third one.
Third one, I put Ryan O'Reilly, and I think a guy like him is very tradable. I don't have to sit here and say
that for a while.
Ryan O'Reilly is, everyone knows Ryan O'Reilly's been a great player, great leader, pedigree, all that kind of stuff. He brings so much good. I think he's a guy you very much could trade, but based on Trotz's comments, and I very much believe him, he values a guy like Ryan O'Reilly really high, and it's pretty much come out, and they've been saying that the Preds are treating Ryan O'Reilly like he's on a no movement clause. And again, it's one of those things where whether or not I think they necessarily should, I understand why they're treating O'Reilly the way he is, and I think it's very much one of those things where I could see it happening, but I don't think it's going to be for something. It's got to be something that really moves Barry Trotz. He's got to be blown away by a package to trade Ryan O'Reilly, and it's got to be a place where Ryan O'Reilly wants to go. And I was kind of thinking, the Preds had been in the there were rumors that the Preds might trade for Dylan Cousins, and I was thinking, okay, you can use Ryan O'Reilly in a package, but I don't think Barry Trotz would do that to Ryan O'Reilly to send him back to Buffalo, where he literally almost lost his love for the game because of how terrible his experience was up there. So, yeah, there's a lot of factors in a Ryan O'Reilly trade, but it is still possible that they trade him.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. When it comes to Ryan O'Reilly, for me, I've been saying for a while that he should be tradable. He shouldn't be an untouchable. And that just has to do with the fact that he is the most high valued, realistic player you can trade on this team. That's not named Philip Forsberg and Roman Josi and Juuse Saros, players like that, who aren't going to be traded, obviously. Yeah. So Ryan O'Reilly, even though the team says he has no movement clause, everyone has a price.
Right.
I think that more than likely Trotz is not going to do it, but you never know until that one GM makes the call and says, I'm going to give you this because I want Ryan O'Reilly that bad. I want that.
Everyone knows and no one's confused. By the way, Ryan O'Reilly has no movement protection on his contract. The Preds could move him whenever. They don't have to ask Ryan O'Reilly's permission at all.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but Ryan O'Reilly also he has spoken that he doesn't want to leave. He's happy here. He wanted to come here. He chose Nashville. He's already got his Stanley Cup. He's already got his. I'm not saying he doesn't want to win another one. I'm just saying Ryan O'Reilly, I think, is a team first type of veteran, which is why we all love him so much.
Yep.
He is not. He is the absolute. He's the opposite of being a prima donna or a drama type of player who brings drama, unnecessary drama to the locker room. He's the opposite of that.
Yeah.
He's the guy you want in your locker room. What I'm saying is, I don't know if the Preds are in that spot right now in their makeup, and I think they are about to go into a retool. And is Ryan O'Reilly going to be around long enough for the Preds to come out on the other side when they can really use him
Right.
to his most, if that makes sense? If this team was a playoff team, if they were hunting around the wild card spot and even having a chance at the top three, like we all thought they would when we were going into the season, then Ryan O'Reilly would be like one of your most precious assets going into the playoffs, because you need guys like Ryan O'Reilly when you're in the playoffs. But if this team misses the playoffs, why are we holding on to Ryan O'Reilly when he's he's in year 2 of 4 years. He's got 2 more years after that.
For that reason, the Preds shouldn't take anything from him. They should be something that actually is worth.
How much longer is Ryan O'Reilly going to be able to keep at this level he's playing?
True.
I'm worried that Ryan O'Reilly is going to regress next year, not because he's a bad player, but just because it just happens. It happens. Right. We've already admitted he's not a top line center anymore, and he's arguably maybe not even a second line center on some teams.
I've honestly thought of that at some points.
And it doesn't mean he's a bad player. It's just the way it goes. It just happens. Right. Guys get old. The game gets past them. Ryan O'Reilly is a great player in the way he plays the game. I mean, he scores the greasy goals. He works his butt off down there, and he's a leader. He's a coach on the ice. All the things I'm saying is why he's so tradable right now. And his value is never going to be higher than it is now. But that's a really tough decision but he's on my trade board as well, Max. There's
a lot of things you have to weigh in a trade for Ryan O'Reilly.
And it also really depends on where the Preds are in the next 5 weeks before you can really say how tradable Ryan O'Reilly is going to be. If the Preds keep going backwards and they're like, they go back the other direction again, and they're back down there with the Blackhawks and the Sharks, why are you holding on to Ryan O'Reilly at that point when you can get something pretty good out of him?
Yeah.
So I think at that point you have to strongly consider trading him.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll move on to number 4 on my list. And this is kind of getting into the part of guys where you're really not getting a great return, if at all. Well, you get something, I suppose. Anyway, number 4 on my list, I put Colton Sissons. A lot of people have said great things about Colton Sissons. We've all watched him. We know it. And, he's one of those guys. Colton Sissons is what he is. He'll never blow you away with his offensive production. He's not like a top-flight superstar player, nothing like that at all. But he's a gritty guy. He'll do a little bit of everything. He helps you in the playoffs, those kinds of things. And teams will be interested in that. A really good, solid, consistent bottom 6 center who, is this the second to last year in his contract? I think it is.
I'm pulling it up right now just to make sure we're accurate on that. Yeah, he's a unrestricted free agent in 2026. So next season is his last year on his deal, which he signed way back in 2019, July 2019.
Yeah. So, Colton Sissons is a guy that, it'd be kind of a hard day for Preds fans to see him go, just because he's one of those guys that he's one of those fan favorites in a way.
It'd be hard for me.
Yeah,
it'd be hard for me.
He wouldn't be the only one it wouldn't be the only one. You wouldn't be the only one, Chad. But it's one of those things where at this point, he's getting up there in age, and I'm not saying Colton Sissons isn't like a true difference maker, but he would be a help in the playoffs. Just to select, because a lot of teams need depth in the playoffs and guys who are just playoff performers. And he's kind of done that in his career, and I think there'd be some interest in Colton Sissons, and with him getting towards the end of his contract and the Preds not being a good team right now, I think it's a good opportunity.
And we're talking about a guy he's 31 now, and he is third among active Preds players in career games played. He only is behind Philip Forsberg and Roman Josi.
Yeah.
When the Preds signed him and invested in him long term back in 2019, he was, I'm looking at it right now to make sure I get it right. I'm pretty sure he was 25 years old. He signed as a restricted free agent at the time. So, I mean, the Preds really showed a lot of faith in him, and I think he's delivered, especially for the contract they signed him to, which was below $3 million per year.
Yeah.
And he's always showed up. He's always played hard. He's been the true definition of a gritty depth player, a two-way player. The things you don't notice in the box score. He wins faceoffs. He kills penalties. He'll occasionally give you that bonus offense. He's got some flashy offense in clutch moments at times, but his job has always been being a two-way forward, being a defensive forward, doing the unglamorous part of the job. But I've got Colton Sissons right behind Gus Nyquist on my list. I think
I saw when you shared, yeah.
Yeah, I think you gotta trade Colton Sissons at this point. And again, I think you can get another draft pick or maybe a prospect or something. It's not going to be earth shattering, but you got to start unloading some of these assets, not only because you're looking for something in return, obviously, but you're actually you got to start freeing up space for your upcoming prospects who, by all accounts, most writers and analysts and scouts who rank these prospect pools say the Preds are like definitely top half of the league, maybe even top 10 prospect system right now. You got to start making room for some of these guys. You got to give them a chance. You just can't. It's not just you got to like make room for them, but you got to like give them chances to really play. And not only that, but you got to also start thinking about freeing up space to make more significant trades down the road. So I think you just have to start clearing out some space on the roster. And Colt Sissons is another player who, unfortunately, I think his time has ran its course here. It's been a great run here. I think he could do a playoff team a lot of good in a bottom six for a playoff team in the playoffs. I mean, I could see Colton Sissons winning key faceoffs in the playoffs. I could see him killing penalties in the playoffs for a playoff team. I can see him showing leadership for a playoff team. Yeah. So he's a very tradable asset for me, right behind Nyquist. And I would put him slightly ahead of O'Reilly just because I think he's more realistic to be traded.
Right. Yeah, I think you and I are agreement that we would have had O'Reilly a little farther up there if we thought it was realistic, but it's probably not.
All right, so you got Sissons number 4. I would have Sissons probably number 2, but either way, give me your 5th one. Give me one more.
Number 5, and this one's definitely going to be the one that, some people might laugh at, whatever. I promise I have a case for it. Luke Schenn to be by number 5th most tradable player on the Preds right now. And, obviously he has his deficiencies well documented, most notably that whenever he skates, he looks like he's doing so in quicksand. But Luke Schenn, I mean, for as much crap as people give him about his on-ice struggles, he still has a good reputation in this league. He really does. He's known as a good culture guy. He's a former Cup winner. He's well respected in the league. He has that pedigree. And Steven Stamkos talked about him, how much of a help he was, when choosing Nashville. Again, that stuff matters. Again, people might roll their eyes, but again, good players, connect with each other. I mean, at least players with good reputations connect with each other. And that's what, Luke Schenn does a lot of ways. Remember several weeks ago when Boyd was on the podcast, he had talked about how Steve Dangle mentioned, Luke Schenn as a possibility for a trade partner for a team like the Canucks, who right now they're going through some turmoil. They have a young captain, and they could just use a kind of a veteran calming presence to help to kind of calm things down in the locker room for a team that's kind of going through it. And also he's super physical. Again, and Luke Schenn's not the kind of player. Of course, you're not get what, like a 5th rounder. You'd be pretty lucky if you got that. And I would still take that, even like a 6th or a 7th probably. But still, I think Luke Schenn is a player that, of course, if it's not going to cost too much, which it won't, some teams might look at that and be like, okay, we'll take him as a potential 6th, 7th defenseman. And granted, he does have one more year left in his contract, so he's not a rental, so that makes it tough. But I do think there are some teams out there who could see Luke Schenn as, if nothing else, as a culture booster for their team.
I mean, first of all, I'm not laughing at you. I think it makes total sense. I just don't know if Trotz is going to really get anything that makes him want to actually trade him.
Fair.
I don't think there's going to be a ton of interest in Luke Schenn because I don't know if Luke Schenn can really match the speed of the playoffs. He might be more of a liability than his pedigree offers. I don't know. I think the market for him is going to be very low. I don't see any rebuilding teams adding Luke Schenn.
Oh, no, we're not rebuilding.
The only teams who are going to be interested in a Luke Schenn is going to be a team that already feels really, really confident in their roster, and they're just trying to add a big body. They're just trying to add a guy. They're trying to add a guy who's going to stick up for their players. No one's giving up much of anything to get a player like that.
Right. But I mean, last year in the playoffs, I mean, granted, it was kind of different with especially how the Canucks and the Preds match up against each other. But if you notice last year in the playoffs, there wasn't nearly as much open ice, and it was mainly physical, just grind out style of play. Luke Schenn actually kind of fit in decently in that series. He was a bit quality stay-at-home defenseman in those playoffs. And it's different regular season where it's a lot, and depending on the matchup, of course, like against a team like Edmonton, Luke Schenn's probably going to be left in the dust a ton of times. But the playoffs are more physical. They're more grinded out kind of style of play. And if that's what it's going to be, Luke Schenn, I think, is a better fit for a team in the playoffs than he is a regular season.
All right, so I'm gonna break away from you, and I'm gonna throw a different player at number 5. Again, I don't think it's super likely, but it also wouldn't surprise me. Tommy Novak.
I thought about that,
and here's why. There's always going to be teams out there, and I think his trade market would be actually not just playoff teams. I think some rebuilding teams would be interested in Tommy Novak. Here's what holds back Tommy Novak. He's definitely regressed this year. He's not playing at the top of his level. And quite frankly, if he was playing at the top of his level, the Preds wouldn't trade him. That's the problem we have right now.
Maybe a lot better right now.
I'm only putting him on this trade list because he's not playing up to his level. He's got 2 more years at $3.5 million per year after this year, which could be a roadblock to getting him traded. But I could see a team out there, a young team, actually, a rebuilding team, a non-playoff team, actually, who has plenty of cap space, who would take on $3.5 million per year and say, you know what, I'll take Tommy Novak. He needs a change of scenery. And we've seen this happen to the Preds tons of times where they trade away players who end up flourishing in other places. I think you could maybe get a prospect swap out of Novak. Maybe even a late draft pick and a prospect swap out of Novak from a team who really likes Novak, a scouting department from a team who thinks we can fix Tommy Novak. He just needs to come here. I see his fit being more at a non-playoff team more than a playoff team. I don't see a lot of playoff teams being interested in taking – because Novak's going to be a project if he goes somewhere else. Yep. So it would have to be a team that's not trying to necessarily win now. So I'm throwing Tommy Novak on my list.
Sure.
I don't think it happens necessarily. I would go like 20% chance maybe, but not completely 0%. The only reason I don't put Luke Schenn on there is I just don't think he's tradable, but I just don't know if Trotz is going to be willing to take what he hears. He might just say, you know what, I'll just pass. I'll keep Luke Schenn.
Right.
I'll keep him. But it would solve the speed issue because Luke Schenn's not giving you anything in speed. I'll tell you that.
Right.
But I do appreciate when Luke Schenn takes a fight. Anytime Luke Schenn drops the gloves, I'm dropping everything I'm doing and I'm watching that.
Right.
I mean, he's a beast. I mean, you gotta have some serious, to step up to Luke Schenn because the guy's a beast. He's a big dude.
Right.
He's been there and he's done that. All right. Before we move on here in Catfish on Ice, we just did our trade board. We're gonna break down the Mikko Rantanen mega trade. We're gonna rank our top 5 NHL goal songs. I got to give you guys the Smashville stat of the week. We haven't done that in a while. And what else am I missing, Max? I got everything. We have a lot to cover today, so I feel like I'm missing something here. Four Nations preview. Yeah. 4 Nations face-off. We got to preview that. And we got to do our segment, You're Doing Too Much. Yeah. We still got a lot to get into, but we'll hit it rapid fire. But I do want to hit you with DraftKings and our promo code, which is THPN. NFL playoffs are almost over. We have reached the final 2 games. first of all, or the final game, the final two teams. We've reached the Super Bowl. Max, what did you think of the conference championship games? I got to watch both of them on Sunday. I was pulling for the Bills so hard.
I was too.
You would have thought I was a Bills fan the way I was cheering for that team where I was watching it. Again, it's just Patrick Mahomes is too much in the playoffs. So we've got a rematch of the Super Bowl 2 years ago. It's the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's tell you, first of all, Max, what did you think about those games?
It was tough. The Commanders made too many mistakes to win that game, and the Bills just can't get over that hump, whatever it is. I don't know.
Can't get over the hump. I feel for those Bills fans. I really do.
Yeah.
But playoffs, yes, we're talking about the playoffs. You bet we are. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Scoring touchdowns is key to winning in the playoffs, and you can score big by betting on them at DraftKings, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple, like a player to score 6, even Patrick Mahomes. You can bet on Patrick Mahomes. Or you can bet on Travis Kelce. You can go on the Eagles side, bet on Saquon Barkley, who is balling out right now. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. Let's look at I looked at it earlier on DraftKings, what they're saying about the Super Bowl, and it's a minus 1.5 point spread in favor of the Chiefs. You can't get any more razor thin than that. The over-under is set at 49.5 points, and the money line is also razor thin with the Chiefs as a minus 130 and the Eagles as a narrow plus 110 underdog. So as you would expect, the Super Bowl is a toss-up. But right now, download the new DraftKings customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY. That's 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of the Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus age varies and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional items and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. I got the Eagles, Max. I think they're going to dethrone the Chiefs. What about you?
I got the Chiefs until they
got the Chiefs. All right.
Yeah, repeat.
We got Redemption, Johnny jumping in and saying, home for my birthday dinner. Happy birthday, Johnny. Popping in to say hi. I'll listen to the full show in the archive. We appreciate you, Johnny. We hope you had a great birthday. Thanks for hopping in and saying hi. All right, so Max, how about we break down this mega trade of Mikko Rantanen? I mean, you just don't see trades like this in sports very often, in any sport, where a team trades one of their greatest superstars, and it's no less a 3-way trade in the middle of a season where the Avalanche are a Stanley Cup contender. It's crazy. It's not like the Avalanche are some middle of the road,
right?
Middling team, kind of like the Predators are.
Their window's kind of closing, but they're still competitive.
This team has Stanley Cup or bust type of expectations. Once they get in the playoffs, those fans and that front office and those players, they expect to win a Stanley Cup. That's how good that team is. And they just sent – now they got some good players in return. We're going to put it on the screen. But, Max, you got to break this trade down for me and why this trade is so bizarre.
Yeah, I cannot believe they did that at this point. And, look, I understand that it was a contract – a lot of it was a contract issue. The Avs thought they probably weren't going to re-sign him. I get that, okay? I get their hands were kind of tied. Mm-hmm. But you're 6 weeks out from the deadline. You're when the trade was made, you're 40 days away. You're not at the point where you have to just bite the bullet yet. And the return was pretty good. I mean, it was okay. Marty Necas is a pretty good player. Jack Drury is a decent prospect. got a second and fourth round pick, but those picks are going to be low, probably where the Hurricanes are going to finish. Yeah. And I just think that, I mean, if you're making that again, if we're a team that's, again, one thought I kind of had was, maybe the Avs kind of made this trade thinking that their window was closing a bit, which I could understand, but they don't seem to be thinking that way right now. And look, again, the return, I guess, maybe they didn't get totally fleeced. I don't know. But again, with this point in the season, I just think that Mikko Rantanen's the kind of player until you truly, truly, truly have
he's a generational talent. I mean,
yeah, he's the kind of player you hold out for unless you get a stellar return. And you may even
they could have. I felt like it jumped, just like you're saying, Max. Why so quick to rush into
it? I just think that it's the kind of situation where either you hold out for a great return, or if you don't, you take your chance and you're going to the playoffs if you think you're going to win another cup. I can't believe they moved him like that this early. I'm absolutely stunned still 4 days later. And again,
it's a three-way
I know
trade.
The contract was a discussion about it. I get it. But if you're trading him 6 full weeks for the deadline, in my opinion, it better be a stellar return. Marty Necas has been a good player this year, but he's not Mikko Rantanen. Jack Drury is not a totally top prospect. They didn't even get a first-round pick in the trade.
It's a three-way trade that involves the Chicago Blackhawks randomly, who the Blackhawks involved with Taylor Hall, basically, which Taylor Hall was just like a journeyman at this point in his career. We know but the Blackhawks, here's the weird part about this. They retain 50% of Rantanen's $9.25 million salary.
Just to get their third-round pick back.
I mean, that's so weird. You're retaining salary of a player that had nothing to do with your team.
I guess they wanted something for Taylor Hall, I guess.
No, I mean, I get what you're saying, but it's just weird. You really have to
it seems like they just wanted publicity.
I mean, what the hell are the Blackhawks doing these days? I mean, they're just we keep saying Did
you hear apparently what Mikko what's believed?
Yeah, let's get into that. I mean, he's saying he was willing to take lower than market value.
That's not what I'm talking about. Apparently there was something said about how the Avalanche even kind of gave him somewhat of an ultimatum, saying you're being traded either to the Hurricanes or the Blackhawks. You didn't want to go to the Blackhawks.
Oh, well, can't blame him there.
I don't know if that's so. I just saw it. That could be false. Don't hold me to
the whole story was he wants $14 million a year,
and then he's saying he's willing to take a pay cut. It's crazy.
But I mean, as these salary caps keep going up, you're going to start seeing this.
The salary cap's going up, and I also saw apparently something they didn't want. They've apparently come to terms with paying Kel McCarr more than Nathan McKinnon. They didn't want to do the same with Rantanen. And then Rantanen, from everything he's talking about, he was surprised to be traded. All that, I'm being fair. I'm being fairly critical of the Avalanche. And if I were an Avalanche fan, look, I'm playing devil's advocate too. I'm not saying you're stupid for defending this trade at all. I get it, but it's crazy to me. And I will say, as critical as I'm being of the Avalanche, if they had not won a Stanley Cup yet, I'd be 1,000 times more critical.
For sure, but in the short term, this definitely dampens the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah,
in terms of their hopes of winning a Stanley Cup this year, and it instantly boost up the Carolina Hurricanes.
And I don't even think. And also, what's funny too about it is some people, maybe I'm underselling Marty Necas a little bit, who was involved in the trade for Rantanen, but it's not like he's that much younger than Rantanen. He's only 2 years younger, I believe, maybe not even that. And Necas has a contract expiring next year, so the Avalanche could find themselves back in the same situation next year with Necas.
Yeah. Really strange trade.
I don't like it.
If you're an Avs fan, you're definitely having a hard time understanding this. If you're a Hurricanes fan, you're like, let's go. This is awesome.
Yeah. I don't like it from the Avalanche.
Let's see how it all plays out.
Yeah. I mean, you never know, but
all right. So let's give you a quick preview of the Four Nations face-off, which I got to be honest, I kind of forgot this was coming up until a week ago. And what's hilarious is when it was first announced, I was really excited about it. I was like, this is so cool. Like an in-season tournament, kind of like the Olympics with NHL players. This is going to be so cool. And I just kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
Well, it's coming up. February 12th through the 20th. It's kind of going to be like the break for the Olympics and the break for there's going to be
because I remember early in the year I saw a break in the schedule. I forgot. I had
there's no All-Star game.
The Olympics again.
There's no All-Star game this year. This is replacing the All-Star game.
Yeah.
But you got the Four Nations face-off, first ever time. It's going to be in Montreal and Boston with just to fill in some people who maybe be out of the loop or maybe forgot. But you got teams from Finland, Sweden, Canada, and the United States. So 4 obvious hockey hotbeds.
The four best
featuring NHL players. Each team will consist of 13 forwards, 7 defensemen, 3 goalies, playing by NHL rules. So really, it's basically like you're watching NHL hockey, but you're getting the players playing for their country. You know, back in the old days of the All-Star game, you had the world players versus the American players or the North American players. Like that's how they used to do the All-Star game back in the day. And it was a lot of fun to see that happen where you see the North American players, Canada and United States go up against all the guys from Russia and Europe. And that was cool back in the day. And now they do they do it to where they pick each player from each division, which I don't like. Each division gets a player, and it's like a 3-on-3 tournament. I don't like it at all. But I do like this. In replacement of the All-Star game, I'm definitely all in on this. I can't wait to watch it. It's going to be on TNT, so hopefully you got that and able to watch it. But I want to go over the rosters here. Let's go over the first matchups, first of all, too. I want to tell you guys about that. So it starts on February 12th with Canada versus Sweden. That'll be on the TNT networks, Max. If you have the streaming service Max, you can watch it on Max. The United States will take on Finland to open up the Four Nations tournament. Face off against so United States, Finland will be on ESPN, actually. So it's not all on TNT. So that'll be on Thursday, February 13th. And then you got Finland versus Sweden, United States versus Canada, and so on. And just the way it's going to be round-robin format, just like the Olympics, kind of 3 points for a win in regulation, 2 points for a win in overtime, or a shootout, and 1 point for a loss in overtime, and a shootout and 0 points for a loss in regulation. So round-robin, the 2 teams with the best tournament record will then advance to a 1-game final. So that's how this is going here. So that'll be fun to watch. So let's look at the rosters, and me and Max are going to pick our team that we think is going to win it all. All right? And I'm not going to name every player from each roster, but I am going to kind of name some main players from each team. So let's look at Team Canada first. Nathan McKinnon, Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid. Do I need to go any further?
Right.
Mark Stone, Sam Reinhart, Braden Point, Mitch Marner, Brad Marchand, Travis Connect. I mean, they are just loaded. It's ridiculous. Defensemen, Cal McCarr, Josh Morrissey, Colton Parayko. Alex Pietrangelo is going to have to bow out due to injury.
I saw that.
So they are actually trying to figure out still who's going to replace him. They don't know that yet. But and then here's what worries me about Canada. I don't like their goalies compared to the other team's goalies. Jordan Bennington, Aiden Hill, and Sam Montembeau. I don't know. I'm not saying
this is 2019. Bennington would have won the whole thing himself.
If we're talking about the best of the best playing in these tournaments, I mean, it might not matter. I mean, these goalies might be able to get a win giving up 5 or 6 goals with how much firepower that Canada's going to have when it comes to scoring. So it might not matter who's in net. But I'm just saying that's kind of a weak goalie room there, in my opinion, compared to the other teams here. Let's look at Finland. Finland, some of the guys that stick out to me, not nearly as loaded as Canada with their forwards, not nearly as loaded. But they do got Mikko Rantanen, who we just talked about. Patrick Laine, Rupe Hintz, former Predator Eric Holla, former Predator Mikael Granlund, Alexander Barkov from the Panthers, Sebastian Aho, all quality players, but nowhere near the same superstar power of Team Canada. Defensemen for Finland, some of them. Miro Heiskanen is obviously a top tier goalie in the league, or a defenseman in the league. Oli Mata, Yanni Hakanpää. I mean, come on. Team Finland, I don't know. And their goalies, they got Juuse Saros and Kevin Lankinen. And Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen for the Sabres. That's their goalie room. I don't know. I'm not so sure about Finland, but we'll see. Sweden, a lot of Preds flavor here. How about Victor Arvidsson and Philip Forsberg rejoined as teammates? That's fun.
That's
cool.
Fan. That's super cool.
You're looking at the rest of Team Sweden. Gus Nyquist also representing the Preds here. William Karlsson's a decent player there from the.
I heard he might not
Knights.
play. I thought
maybe, I don't know.
I thought he was injured. I could be wrong. A few of these guys I've heard about had to bow out because of injury. I think Alex Pietrangelo had to bow out from Canada because he's hurt.
Elias Pettersson's in there. William Nylander from the Maple Leafs is in there. So a quality team, of course. Mika Zibanejad, Lucas Raymond from the Red Wings. Defensemen, I do really like the defensemen for Sweden. They got Matthias Ekholm. They got Victor Hedman. They got Erik Karlsson, Rasmus Andersson. They've got a decent – I like their defense a lot for Sweden. I do. And then their goalies, Philip Gustafsson, Jacob Markstrom, and Linus Ullmark. Decent goalie room. And then finally, the red, white, and blue Team United States. Kyle Connor, Jack Eichel, Jake Yensel, Jack Hughes, Dylan Larkin, Austin Matthews, JT Miller, Brady Chuck. The Chuck brothers are in there. I mean, other than Canada, the United States has got the best group of forwards for sure in this. Defensemen, Adam Fox, Noah Hannafin, Quinn Hughes for the Canucks, Jacob Slavin from the Carolina Hurricanes, Charlie McAvoy. I mean, Brock Faber, Noah Hannafin, I already said him. Zach Werenski from the Blue Jackets. Decent decor. I do like them. But here's why I'm picking the United States, and I'm not being biased, Max.
Yep.
I think that when you put the forwards with USA and Canada head to head, I might give a slight edge to Canada when it comes to their forwards, maybe just a slight edge, just on paper. But I like the goalies for the United States. Jeremy Swayman, Jake Ottinger, and Connor Hellebuck. Are you kidding me?
Oh. Who did you say the goaltenders were for Sweden again?
Sweden, Sweden, I'm sorry. Let's see. Sweden.
I might have missed it.
Philip Gustafsson, Jacob Markstrom, Linus Ullmark. Decent.
Yeah. No, I think based on the rosters you just said, I'd have to say I think USA wins it too.
Just because they're goalies.
Yeah, I think that really the completeness of their roster, I think, puts it over the edge.
I mean, as we said earlier, goalies are streaky.
Yeah.
I mean, but they definitely have the best trio of goalies in this tournament.
I love like the passion I've seen for this tournament so far. Like I saw today that Mackenzie Weegar said something like, "Look, I have a vacation in Mexico for the week, but I can cancel at any time." And then Seth Jarvis said something like, "Yeah, I'll play like right defense if they need to." So these guys want to play. I mean, I think it's great, and especially for in the middle of the year where so many guys be like, "Oh, I don't want to get injured" and all that.
It's
these
really
guys
cool.
seem to want to play. I also think they kind of have they're kind of restless for that because they didn't play in the last Olympics due to them being in China during COVID. And that whole thing was a mess.
But they're also representing their countries, and there's a lot of pride.
They're dying for the chance to do that.
There's a lot of national pride. I do see this sticking around for the future, for sure.
Yeah, I think so. It's good.
Whenever the Olympics are all, I mean, do you think this replaces the All-Star game? What did they really? If they really said?
I think they might have. I can see them having it every 3 or so years. Because like I feel like you want to do it more, but like you don't do it to the point where like it kind of loses its luster. Like the Winter Classics kind of lost its luster.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then also, I mean, there are some fun things with the All-Star game. Like, I like the skills competition, even though the last few skills competitions have just been gimmicks. They've been kind of cheesy. Right. So I love this shakeup. I'm definitely intrigued. I'm interested to see how the ratings work for this, especially the fact that they got the United States and Canada playing on a Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on ABC major network television.
It's insane.
I cannot wait to see what the ratings look like for that game, U.S. and Canada. And they got Finland, Sweden playing the afternoon slate on that Saturday. So both on ABC. So major network television. I'm really excited to see how those ratings look. But I'm in. I'm pumped, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to definitely be into it. I'm going to be excited about it. I'm taking my bias out of this. I'm being as totally non-biased as possible. I think Team USA's should win this, but it's as we would expect. It's probably going to come down to Team USA and Canada. But I do like Sweden. I think Sweden could be a dark horse in this, and unfortunately, I think Finland
probably is the worst team.
You're underdog for sure. I'm not saying you can't win it, but you're the underdog. I hate to break it to you.
Yep.
But interestingly enough, United States and Finland will play first. That's the United States' first matchup. That'll be on Thursday, February 13th, also in prime time on ESPN. And Canada opens up the whole thing on Wednesday, February 12th on TNT against Sweden. So I'm all in. Cannot wait to watch it. Let's see how Forsberg does with Sweden. Let's see how Saros defends the pipes for Finland. And he's going to be going up a lot of shots, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
All right. We got that knocked out. Smashville stat of the week, and then we'll do our goal songs. All right. Smashville stat of the week is all about the most productive and efficient lines in hockey when it comes to offense, the forward lines. I'm going to put the top 4 on the screen according to Money Puck. I looked at this right before we went live. I'll put that up right now for YouTube and Facebook viewers. And then I will tell you where the next best Preds line ranks among the forward lines in the NHL. This is, of course, according to Money Puck. So there's your top 4 right now. A little surprised, but you got the Canes at number 1 with the most productive line: Martinook, Stahl, and Carrier. Number 2 should not surprise you: Hyman, McDavid, and Nugent Hopkins. You've got the Flyers at number 3, which the Flyers are a flashy team. And then the Devils at number 4. So all 4 of those teams are known for their offense. So you shouldn't be surprised to see them have lines included there. Then you look at the Preds. I think we can all take a guess on which line that would be. You want to take a guess?
Forsberg, Stamkos, Marceau.
There you go. Max knows what I'm doing here.
Had to be.
Number 31 among forward lines in the league, according to Money Puck, based on
that takes into account how many games they've played, though, right?
It's just expected goals percentage. So it's not even about total. It's literally just it has nothing to do with games played. Or minutes. It has to do with just how efficient you are.
Oh, never mind then.
The sample size isn't as, but all these lines have at least 200 minutes played together.
Okay.
So
it's not like these lines have just come at like one time.
No, these are all heavy sample sizes here.
Okay.
And I'll even put it on the screen so we can let our viewers see what I'm looking at on Money Puck. But and Max, so you can see it too. But yeah, so number 31 is the closest. And if we remember, very different than what we saw last year when you were looking at this list, and you saw the Ryan O'Reilly, Gus Nyquist, and Phil Forsberg line was one of the most efficient forward lines in the league. I think they were like top 5.
That's crazy.
Now we're all the way down to number 31. Not to mention, the Preds didn't even put Stamkos in this line together until it was kind of too late.
Right.
That's the issue.
Yeah.
So, I'm just looking through here and just looking at some of these top lines here. As we scroll up here, you're seeing a lot of teams who aren't very good, but at least they have a good top line, or they have a really good, efficient one line. The fact that the Preds are all the way down at number 31 before you find one efficient forward line, that's a problem. It's a big issue. Yeah. And then you have to scroll. I have to scroll so far down. I'm down to number 41, and I still haven't found another Preds line.
Yeah,
that's up here. So that's the issue, unfortunately. This is minimum ice time of 200 minutes is what this is set at. So, we can lower it down maybe a little bit and see if a Preds line pops up here. I just love playing around with this. It's always a lot of fun. I'm just looking for one Preds line. Novak Jankowski Evangelista if you lower the minimum ice time down together to 100 minutes, you get a Novak Jankowski Evangelista sighting. They played 115 minutes together. So that's kind of surprising. Didn't expect to see that. I don't know about you, Max.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, but again, small sample size. Forsberg, O'Reilly, Nyquist popped back up.
Yeah.
But again, I think that ship has sailed, most likely, especially if Nyquist gets traded here pretty soon. And then, I mean, there's a lot more samples here with when you lower it down to 100 minutes played together.
Yep.
But even then, Forsberg, Stamkos, Marchessault is way back.
Yeah.
So I mean, the Preds just don't have any efficiency with offense right now with their lines. It's just been a constant struggle all year to find that chemistry that you need on offense. They just don't have the trusted. I mean, they hope they have it with Stamkos as the top line center and Marchessault and Forsberg. They're going to keep playing with that line, and they should. They got no other options. You have to stick with it. But that's just that really tells it all for why you see with the Predators where they are in the standings. So that's our Smashville stat of the week. Sorry I couldn't bring you better news this week, people, but it just is what it is.
Yeah.
And so with that said, let's do our top 5 NHL goal songs. There's actually a Spotify playlist of NHL goal songs for 2024, which is just awesome.
I wonder what yours are. Are you going to put yours on the screen?
I'm not going to put them on the screen, but I am going to play a small clip of each song through the microphone using this Spotify.
I wonder how similar lists are going to be.
All right, but I am going to start with number 5.
Okay.
Mine, and let me give you my criteria first. My criteria for this list for ranking these. First of all, I left the Preds out because I cannot take my bias out when it comes to music. It's impossible. Yeah. I will say that if I had to rank the Preds goal song, I would put it top 5 for sure. Yeah. Just because Tim McGraw, I like it. I love it. It's been with the team for so long. It's synonymous. Yeah. Every away fan who's been to a Preds game knows about that song. No, it's synonymous with the Preds. And then the fact that they threw the Black Keys, gold on the ceiling. I mean, just a great play on words. It fits the team. It fits the team jersey, gold on the ceiling. It's upbeat. It's exciting. So, but I left them out of my rankings just because we're a Preds podcast. That's the only reason I did it. And also, my criteria is 1, how catchy is it? 2, how annoying is it for a opposing fan to hear that song when it's scored? That's one of my criteria. Because when I've been an away fan in other arenas, and the more annoying that song is, the better I think that they chose their goal song. And also just we're watching hockey. How hyped does it get me? And also I threw in some bonus points for if it's creative. If it's if it's not just a general boring goal song. I left those. Some of these teams in the league have very boring goal songs.
Yeah,
I left those out.
But there are a lot of really good goal songs too.
There are. All right, so let me start with number 5 on my list, and it is "Raise Up" by Petey Pablo, the Carolina Hurricanes. I don't know if anyone remembers Petey Pablo. It's back in the day. I mean, this is nostalgia for me, and let me see if I can find it on the playlist. But it plays to Carolina.
Yep.
The whole song is about North Carolina, and it's called here it is. All right, here we go. Let me play a little bit of it. Wait, it says explicit, so I'll just play a small part of it. I don't know what part of the song they play in it.
I do recognize the song. I've actually been in that arena before, so I've heard that one.
This one's for North Carolina. Yeah, so that's my number 5. Excuse my poor singing. All right, number 4. I've got them in my top 5 here because this song is so annoying if you're an opposing fan. I mean,
I
like
think- I
you
know-
want
I
to.
think I got a feeling. I got a feeling it's gonna. The one I'm thinking was gonna be somewhere here for you.
Oh my gosh, this song is so annoying. And I've been to this arena twice, and I can promise you, as an opposing fan, it's annoying.
Oh.
But I got to put it in there. All right.
Maybe it's not the one I'm thinking of then. I can't hear it.
Can you hear it?
I can't hear it totally. Which I can't. I still can't hear.
Can you hear it?
No.
Dallas Stars, puck off. It's literally Pantera, the band Pantera, who is from Texas, came up with this song, puck off, and they literally just chant Dallas Stars like a million times after
That was actually my number 4 on my list as well. Literally that one.
And I put them in the top 5 just because it's so annoying, but it's so catchy.
Yeah.
And it does get under your skin and make your blood boil if you're an opposing fan. So I got to give them that. Number 3 for me is Kickstart My Heart, Motley Crue, and the Capitals. They have multiple goal songs.
I thought about that one.
So they play. I did some research on this. I've never been to a game there or anything, but they play goal songs for each player, unique. But when they don't go off that, that's their go-to is Kickstart My Heart by Motley Crue. I mean, that's just a perfect NHL song. I mean, goal song. I mean, Kickstart My Heart. I mean, with how intense hockey is, and that's just an old school classic rock song. I like that one a lot for a choice. Yeah. Number 2, a newer goal song in the league, but also, again, I rank it at number 2 because it plays perfectly to the city they play in.
Yep, I know what you have to say.
It's Lithium by Nirvana.
That was not the one I was thinking of.
That was where grunge music was born. It's a great song. It gets you pumped up. I'm not gonna play it on my phone because it's not translating well to the mic, but everyone knows Lithium, Nirvana. So I put them number 2. Great and song. Number 1, and this is how you know that I went full just objective here with my list. And again, it's because it's so annoying and it just so synonymous with this team. And every time I hear this song, I think about this damn team. They've ruined this song for me. It's definitely Chelsea Dagger, the Fratellis, by the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yep.
I mean, they ruined the song for me, but I have to put them number 1 because they did it right. So I'm giving some Blackhawks credit tonight on this podcast, which never happens. They get my number 1 top goal song.
Yep. All right. So on my list, number 5, I had the Preds. Again, like I said in the beginning of the episode, I thought I could be a little biased. There's a lot of goal songs.
I put them number 5. I put them in there.
And honestly, one thing I really put an emphasis on personally for me was goal songs that have been for these teams. They've stuck. They really have not changed. Dallas was a slight exception. They haven't really had that goal song for forever, but it's just so catchy and it goes with the team so well. But a lot of these songs that are ones that have not changed really for the Preds or for any team. Preds haven't changed theirs in a while. We talked about the Stars. Number 3 for me, I put Chelsea Dagger for the Blackhawks at number 3. Number 2 was the Bruins Zombie Nation. That's a classic one. That's a really classic one. And number 1, the New York Rangers. Do you remember their goal song?
I don't.
Let me play it. Let me play it here.
Okay.
Can you hear?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Play a little more. I feel like I'm a Rangers fan listening to this right now.
Yeah. What's the name of that one again?
I honestly don't know the name of this song, but it's such a good one. Like that's the ultimate crowd. That gets the crowd going right there. That gets number 1 in my book.
And like that's one of the most fun things. Like I still have my bucket list of going to every NHL away arena while they're playing the Preds. Like that's my rule is I can't count the arena unless they're playing the Preds. Right. And I've knocked off like 6, I think, maybe 6 or 7. But that's one of the most fun things about your first time going to another arena. Well, the most fun thing would be is if your team actually shuts the other team out, but most of the time that doesn't happen. So when you first hear that goal song and you do get to see, first of all, it's humbling, especially if you're sitting in a section where you're the only away fan, which has happened to me before. I remember when I randomly drove up from Nashville to go to a Columbus Blue Jackets game. I went by myself and sat in lower bowl seats, got great deal on seats, and I was the only Preds fan. And everyone was really nice to me because it wasn't like a rivalry game or anything. But it was so awkward when the Preds scored and I jumped up and was cheering. I was like the only person. Everyone just staring at me.
I did that in St. Louis a few times.
The Blue Jackets also have a really cool, not just a goal song.
I thought about they were going to be my number 5 if not for the Preds.
But they got the cannon.
Yeah.
Which I didn't include that in my ranking because that's not really part of the song. Then you're counting the goal horn. I was just counting the song itself. But if you want to count all the shenanigans that go along with when the team scores, I might have to put the Blue Jackets close to number 1 because they got their cannon.
You know, when you talked about how annoying the goal song is and all that and how it fits the team, I could not believe you didn't put Vegas up there.
Honorable mention. I have them in my honorable mention.
I was positive at some point you were gonna. I was trying to get the bits to get that right.
So yeah, Panic at the Disco, Vegas Lights.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, I mean that's a great song. Early song by Panic.
But I can't get too attached to it because the Knights play it.
The only reason I didn't rank, I just think it's a little too easy. It's a little too generic and cheesy. I don't know.
They're on with how their obnoxious goal horn, the goal song, and all that.
And I'm pretty sure, aren't they from Vegas too? Panic at the Disco. I'm pretty sure they are.
Honestly.
Or the lead singer is. Yeah, you could make an argument, but I mean, then you see some of these ones like the Blues that just have a song called "The Blues Have the Urge" goal. The Montreal Canadiens it's just called Montreal Canadiens. Let's go Montreal Canadiens.
The Maple Leafs one is also not that great.
I thought about putting the Red Wings in there because they got Eminem Without Me.
That one I made
because he's from Detroit, but that doesn't. I don't think about Eminem in a hockey song. I just don't. But some good ones for sure. TNT by AC/DC is for
that was one I thought of.
So I mean, how about rest in peace to the Arizona Coyotes, but their song used to be Howlin' for You by the Black Keys.
When they used to have their retro nights, they used to play Werewolves of London by Warren Zevon, which is pretty funny.
But anyway, for all you hockey fans, if you have Spotify, go look it up. NHL Goal Songs 2024. You'll have a lot of fun listening to each one. It doesn't say which team has each song. You kind of have to do the research. But yeah, funny that there's a Spotify playlist for that.
Yeah.
All right, Max, that's going to do it for episode 260 of Catfish and Ice.
We don't do what's the last segment that you're doing too much?
Oh, yeah, you're doing oh man, I'm doing too much right now. Let's do it. Let's get it. Let's knock it out real quick. We got time. All right, let's do it. Yep. Good catch, Max. I'm moving too fast. Sorry, guys. All right. So I got a segment I want to introduce tonight called "You're Doing Too Much." It's whenever you go on a rant or whenever you go on a tangent, which we do all the time on this show, and you start saying something, and someone just looks at you and you go, "Hey, calm down. You're doing too much. You're doing too much." Maybe you're acting a little too crazy, and someone says, "Hey, you're doing too much." So I'm about to give 4 statements that I have about this team. Doesn't necessarily mean I believe this. I just want to get Max's opinion on whether he thinks. If you say this, you're doing too much. He might agree with it. He might not.
Sure.
Let's start with a banger here. The first one I would say is we should stop thinking about the playoffs and think about 2025, 26, and beyond.
That's a tough one for me personally because, as I always say, the team, when they go out there, it's their job to go and win these games. And at some point, and if you're on a legitimate heater, then at some point you got to reward it. But at the same time, the team is quite far from a playoff spot. At some point, we got to be realistic. So I hate to be in the middle. I would say I'm leaning more towards you probably should move to next year and just kind of. I would say that one's probably fairly accurate. Yes.
Okay. So if someone said that to me, if I was at a game right now, I'm looking at this segment like if this happened in real life, and I was at a game and I was chatting hockey with a fellow Preds fan at Bridgestone Arena in between the intermission having a beer, and a fan said that to me, I wouldn't say they're doing too much. I would say I see where you're coming from.
Yep.
Because I've already kind of shifted to that. Does that mean I don't want to see them win every night? I want to see them play. Doesn't mean that, but I'm not really thinking about the playoffs anymore.
Right.
That for me, that ship has sailed. I am actually way more focused on roster management, asset management, which is what Trotz brought up in his interview recently that we were talking about earlier. So I don't think you're doing too much if you say that. If you say we should stop thinking about the playoffs and think more about 2025, 26 and beyond, I don't think you're doing too much. I think you're actually very fair to think that. Yeah. All right, here's one. Here's my next statement. Zachary Leroux is going to be a future top 6 dynamic NHL forward.
You're doing a little too much. He's still a rookie. Let's let him prove himself. Let's let him prove himself.
All right, because I've seen a lot of people, not a lot, but I've seen some people say that through social media. And again, think about it from the lens is if a fan walked up to you and said that during a game, what would you think in your head? So Max
I'd be like, look, I understand why you think that. He has potential. Certainly, he was a first-round pick. But again, let's let him play more than one season before we make any big sweeping statements like that.
I would say the same. If someone said, and I'm a big Zachary Leroux guy, but if someone said that to me right now, I'd be like, yeah, let's pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah.
Could he now if you reword that and say he's going to be a future middle 6 impact guy, middle 6, a third to second liner tweener, I would go that far. I would say, yeah, that's doable. That's probably going to happen. But to say dynamic top 6 forward game changer, a little too soon. Pump the brakes.
Yeah.
All right. My next one. Juuse Saros' recent play spells danger for his future. We already kind of covered that. But if someone said that, I would say you're doing too much.
I say you're doing slightly a bit too much.
Yeah. But we did already kind of cover that earlier. Yeah. All right. And the last one, Andrew Brunette should be fired in the offseason, full stop.
Slightly a little bit too much. I think, again, I've been on record saying, if this team decided to fire Andrew Brunette after this year, basically saying he didn't do well enough as a coach, they need to voice whatnot, you're not going to hear me pounding drum saying, oh, absurd decision, blah, blah. Same time, I don't think he's the problem for this team's struggles. I think there's a lot more that you could fix before Andrew Brunette. You're doing a bit too much, in my opinion.
I disagree. I think if someone came up to me and said that to me right now, I'd be like, you're totally fair in your assessment, especially if this team ends up finishing towards the bottom of the conference, which is kind of where they're at right now. If they stick around in this same area of the conference, I mean, you have to start somewhere. And I don't see how you carry him into next season because you're probably going to have to bring in a much different roster. You're going to see some guys traded. It's going to be hard to bring Brunette back. Now, if this team rallies, which I thought they were starting to do, and maybe they will, they lost one game. Maybe they'll build another 4 or 5 game winning streak. Maybe they will get into that striking distance that Trotz is talking about. I think it's still very much up in the air on whether that's doing too much or not. But if you say that right now, to me right now, based on where this team is at in the standings, I don't think you're doing too much. I think you're totally fair to say that because of how these expectations for this team were so high. And Trotz did go out and spend money. It's not like he didn't improve this roster on paper. Every analyst agreed that this team was great on paper. So what is wrong with it? What happened?
Granted, I don't think you're doing too. I think you're doing slightly too much. Slightly.
All right, fair enough. I
think the only statement you said where you're really doing too much is the one about Leroux. Let's wait. Let's wait.
All right, fair enough. Good. We'll bring that segment back again in the future. It's a lot of fun there. And again, thinking from the lens, if a fan walks up to you and says that to you in person during a game, I could see all 4 of those being said to me if I was at a game from another fan. So fun stuff. Thanks. I almost forgot about that. And I was really excited about that segment too.
I couldn't let you off the hook on that one.
No, I was excited. I came up with that earlier today, and I was like, that'd be fun.
I liked it.
And what made me think of it was exactly like that. When you're talking sports at the water cooler type talk, when you're sitting at the water cooler with your friends and you're talking sports, armchair GM type stuff, like those types of things always come up, and you always think. You might look at your fellow fan or your fellow friend and be like, hey, you're doing too much. So maybe think of it. So we will bring that segment back for sure. That was a lot of fun. Yeah. All right, now we are done with episode 260 of Catfish and Ice with Chad Minton and co-host Max Greenberg, presented by DraftKings and Game Time. We will see you all very, very soon as this season rolls along. Until then, stay safe. Enjoy the rest of your weeks. We'll see you soon. Smashville. Take care.
See you next time.